Good morning, it's Laurel at Tara Farm and Nursery and Refuge Permaculture Center. I wanted to share the refuge garden with you before something comes along and makes it less pretty. What kind of something? Well, let's see. At a mile high in Wyoming, I could have 3 feet of heavy wet spring snow. Or, the opposite end of the spectrum, I could have a gazillion grasshoppers like I did last year, which is very possible. Their population overload tends to run in a 3-year cycle. So we'll just see. I've already seen baby ones, but today I watered everything and I put down biological early this morning. And that biological is no-low bait. It's a shaved grain that is inoculated with a gastric bacteria that affects only grasshoppers. And they get sick and they don't want to eat, and then they die, and then their cannibalistic, nasty brothers and sisters come along and devour them, and then they are infected with the bacteria. And as many as we had last year, this would not be a genocide. This would just take the top off the population. It usually affects maybe about a third tops. So what do we have here? This is Tartarica honeysuckle. Upside to it, I cut it way back this year, but it has really pretty little flowers and then red berries all winter. Downside to it, it can be invasive by the roots, but the berries also can pop up little baby plants everywhere. Out in the country where it's used for windbreak, the cows and the deer and browsers tend to browse it down. Here is that Selkirk crabapple tree. Still, I don't know if you can see them, but the bees are going crazy in there. This is an ornamental. If it was a fruit-bearing, larger fruit-bearing crabapple, I would be making apple jelly or apple butter all winter. The next plant over here is elderberry. Again, I cut it way back this year because the grasshoppers did so much damage. But as you can see, elderberry is one of those native plants that has learned how to come back from grasshoppers. So all these baby elderberries out here, I'll be taking as cuttings and rootings and transplants, and they'll be for sale later on. And this poor old lilac, which is kind of struggling this year, but next year I will cut it way back and we'll get some new growth on it. More honeysuckle and lilac, and then a hedge of chokecherry, which is probably about 10 years old now, and also covered with pollinators today, even though we're getting a little overcast. Down here, I have evening primrose coming in, and this is the Papaver orientalis with the big crimson color poppies that comes back every year. It survived really well. This is a burgundy color daylily when it decides to bloom. There's Russian sage and blue spirea in here. There is big blue stem, which is just starting to come back. I have 2 snowball viburnum. They also were devastated by the grasshoppers, but as you can see, they're also survivors. The perennials will come back from the roots. That's what we're looking for here. Prairie coneflower, a couple there. Another snowball viburnum. The leaf color when it's coming out is really pretty. They do get aphids, and they can also get mosaic disease, which is carried by a nematode in the soil. It's endemic. There's nothing you can do about it. You can treat it if you want to, but it lives here too. Another big blue stem coming back. This one really good. And all the asparagus that I've left, I'm still collecting, oh, probably half a pound of asparagus every morning from the asparagus plants. Rhubarb. Then this is a red osier dogwood. Right now it's in its spring phase, so the stems and branches are kind of a golden green color. Down there are some little golden lilies that a friend gave me years ago, and every year they come back. It's pretty amazing. Very hardy. And the rest of my asparagus forest. Another poppy down here. And garlic everywhere. I'm excited. The garlic is just coming up like crazy. So then I'll harvest that. I braid the tops. I let it dry outside for a while because it's really strong, smell-wise, and then bring it inside for winter. I left a few sunflowers, the wild sunflowers, for a little color later in the season. And that beautiful green thing right there is Black Samson echinacea, which is a one-off hybrid from the herbal echinacea. As you can see, the leaves are softer and shinier and darker green, and the flowers are actually way darker purple than the herb echinacea. And then my two little comfy chairs where I sit in the evening to try and relax after chasing 7-foot bull snakes all day long. So right now, this is just a wonderful, restful place. And I've done all the weeding and the pruning, and I still have to work on the vineyard and the choke cherries. And we'll take a look at those tomorrow and show you what survived and what didn't. Now the question comes up, why don't I use chemical on the grasshoppers when they were that crazy last year? I just haven't used chemical in these gardens. And in fact, when they spray for mosquitoes out here, I have a no spray zone over the nursery and the gardens and the house. I also want to see what plants, after being just eaten alive, stripped of bark by that many grasshoppers, because that is a natural cycle in the environment here, what comes back? How does it come back? How well does it produce after being eaten like that and stripped like that? Because those are the things that I want to sell. Look at all the little flies on here pollinating for me. Little bees. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. I want to sell plants to my customers that will naturally rebound, because permaculture is all about resilience. There is some intervention, but it's more like going with the flow of nature and supporting that natural flow of nature. So right now I am supporting a whole bunch of pollinators. They are paying me back by giving me, hopefully, choke cherries, depending on the weather. And some of these trees, the bark damage from the grasshoppers was horrible, but look at this. It just brought the stress hormones on and made them flower like crazy this year, and that's what we want to see. That's what I want to learn. That's what I want to sell to my customers. The things that will recover, come back without a lot of chemical loading. So, there's your pretty pictures and your permaculture lesson for the day. And here are my little buddies. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your weekend. Get outside. The garden is quite obviously not closed.